Before we start the podcast, I wanted to make you aware of the free vocab worksheet available for you to access right now for this very episode you are about to listen to. It has some of the episode's best native expressions along with their definitions for a non-native learner so that you can keep up with the conversation you are about to hear. Find the link in the show notes or head to thebritishenglishpodcast.com/worksheet. That's thebritishenglishpodcast.com/worksheet.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Hello and welcome back to the British English Podcast. I'm your host, Charlie, and today's episode features a special guest, Stew from Stew Sensei English. We engage in a culture-rich conversation, packed with native expressions, of course, and we're focusing on British humour and the way we use insults as a form of both comedy and, more broadly, communication. I encourage you to notice any similarities or differences between how our culture and yours incorporate insults into everyday interactions. In the first part of our chat, we share personal experiences related to this unique aspect of communication. I mean, my curiosity does then lead us to learn more about Stew's life journey, including stories that I found captivating, and I hope you will too. But yeah, let's get into the conversation with Stew. I should say a quick heads up, we do use some strong language in this episode as we discuss the types of insults people may throw around. While we don't swear unnecessarily, I wanted to make sure you are aware that such language is included. But yeah, enjoy. Stew, how are we doing?
Fantastic. Thank you, buddy. Really good.
Yeah?
Really, really great.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you indeed. Thank you very much for joining me today. First of all, where are you right now in the world?
I'm based in Japan.
You're based in Japan, okay.
Yes, that's right.
Whereabouts in Japan?
I'm in a prefecture called Chiba, which is about an hour and a bit from Tokyo. So, but kind of countryside, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
We'll get to how you ended up there, I'm sure. But I recently had a conversation with Dan from Brit Speak. He's in Dan. Japan. Do you know him well?
Yeah. We do a lot of work together, and a good friend of mine.
Oh, nice, yeah. Are you two close in proximity, like geography?
Not greatly. I mean, he's not in England, so kind of in a sense. No, but he's in Osaka, or close to Osaka, I should say. So that's maybe 4 hours. For us in England, that's a very long journey, but the rest of the world is quite short. But 4 hours, 4 hours away.
Yeah. So I was just at a wedding in Birmingham, and a friend or family member came and drove from Inverness in Scotland. And it was like a 9-hour drive, I think. And their Airbnb actually got cancelled on the way down. The Airbnb texted them saying, we've had to cancel your accommodation, which was not nice. But the travel in the UK is quite strenuous. I think most people would look at it as a chore. When I was living in Australia, I felt like going on a road trip, it was kind of like fun and exciting and adventurous. How's it translate in Japan if you were to have to hit the road?
Great question, but the thing is, actually, I don't drive.
Okay.
I haven't ever driven, so I did try my test once, but after that attempt, it took all of my ego disappeared in that moment. I think when I failed. But no. I think that though I can tell you a few differences though. for sure. In Japan, there's a lot of tolls. There's a ton of them, like on most roads. So I know that it's...
Do you ever listen to this podcast and think, am I coming away having actually learnt the new vocabulary that I am hearing? Well, if you're unsure, I highly recommend that you grab this episode's free vocabulary worksheet that I have made for you. Grab it now and continue listening to this episode whilst expanding your vocabulary for free. Find the link in the show notes or go to thebritishenglishpodcast.com/worksheet. That's thebritishenglishpodcast.com/worksheet.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
If we're not talking about petrol or anything like this, it's relatively expensive just through tolls.
Okay. Yeah, that's not pleasant, is it? To think, okay, that stretch of the journey cost me £10. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's not nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. So let's get into the theme of the conversation, and then we'll get to know you a little bit more and why you're in Japan and things like that. Sure. So the theme, as I've introed, is about British humour, and particularly like the insults that we throw at each other potentially.
Sure.
So I wonder if you can cast your mind back to probably when you were in school, maybe before school, depends how good you are at remembering your early years. Do you reckon you can recall a time where you remembered your first kind of insult being thrown your way, or maybe you dished it out yourself?
I mean, I remember a lot, unfortunately, about my own being insulted too. But, you know, the thing is, it's such a difficult thing to explain, especially in these days, I feel, to compare between when I was growing up to now and how people would react to those kind of things. Because I think the way that people think of things when I was growing up, I'm not that old, but it does feel like there's been a big change. But yeah, of course. My parents, my dad especially, yeah, he's a bit of a joker sometimes. So, yeah, I heard he used to have a laugh with his friends, have some banter, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. So you would overhear that. Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually making me think. So my niece, so she speaks like she's 30 years old, but she's like 4. And just like there's mannerisms that are very mature. Like I leant in to, actually I insulted her. I said, "You stinky poo-poo face," or something like that, because she was giving it to me. And she said, whoa, you need to back up a bit there. Like very advanced phrasing, I feel like.
Wow. Yeah, and definitely so.
And we were thinking about why she might be like that. And her parents really don't filter their conversations in front of their children. And they're, very raw with how they communicate. They don't baby everything down. I wonder if that reflects at all for you, because you said that your father would just...
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always an element of slightly adjusting language. I mean, we could look at swearing, for example. So I think that many people tend to, when they can, they try to avoid swearing too much in front of their kids or in front of other people's kids. I think we try to be respectful in Britain of that, although you won't always see it, but I think people try to. But yeah, I think with family, it's a bit, especially behind closed doors, I think people were there, how can I say, they let their guard down a little bit, and they are just themselves, aren't they? And especially in the heat of the moment, people aren't their natural selves, and things come out that people don't mean to, but it just comes out, you know. And yeah, of course, there's insults that fly. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you felt like that your father was saying things. Whereabouts are you from in the UK, actually?
I'm originally from Essex, but I lived half of my life in Devon. So 14 years in Essex, and then up until 26 in Devon, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you were saying earlier that there's a big difference between when you were growing up and now in the way that we communicate, which I definitely agree with. But I think it's quite useful for listeners to understand that change, because it might not have happened so drastically in their culture. I don't know.
No.
In Japan, has it changed significantly in comparison to English-speaking cultures?
Some of the things I see on TV, I think I just can't believe some of these things happen these days. It's not like a super abusive society or something like that, so don't get the wrong idea. But I just watch certain things that I'm like, that wouldn't work in the UK. You couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's just like a small thing. They have I don't want to say traditional, but something that it's a bit difficult to explain, but they have this paper fan thing. And although it's not an insult, it's just an example. But friends use it to hit each other on the head. Like this kind of heavy white fan thing. And I just think that just wouldn't happen in the UK, because it's just, I think we're very tense around any kind of physical contact.
Yeah.
So, and insults these days especially. So,
Yes. Yeah.
That's a kind of a small thing that still comes across sometimes. Not so much. It's, again, similar. There has been transition here.
Yeah.
But, maybe not as fast as in English-speaking countries, I think.
Okay, yeah. So let's travel back to maybe in the playground. Can you remember what kind of insults you would dish out?
Me? I mean, I think I'm relatively mild-mannered, but I may have done. Of course, I think we all did as kids. I can't remember the exact, but I would have only given out as much as I got given.
Yeah.
So I think there was always that understanding, especially between friends or people you knew. There would be a bit of verbal abuse going both ways.
Yeah.
So and I've been a part of a lot of sports teams and things. So back in the day, it was a very that kind of culture, a very banter style culture. So
yes,
there was always some light-hearted attacks on each other.
What kind of, like rugby or football or something else?
Football, specifically football. I played a lot of different sports, but football was the one that lasted the longest. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It does go with the sport, doesn't it? Were you quite lippy to the other team? Would you do that?
For me, it depends. Like it's only when something happens to me I tend to be on the defensive or attacking them. So I was never someone to just start abusing people just because they're on the opposite team. But I do know so many people like that. They're so passionate about their team, and then they start attacking other people. Yeah. I know lots of people like that.
I've never really had the gift of the gab, I think we say, when it comes to insulting people really quickly. Like with my group of friends, they're so much quicker at that kind of thing. And I used to play football, but I also played cricket, and I was the wicket keeper. The wicket keeper would have the chance of being in earshot of the batsman most of the time. And whenever I was batting, the wicket keeper was trying to put you off by saying little things.
Bit of sledging going.
Yeah, exactly. And I never had that ability. I was like, I was quite shy at kind of doing that. But lots of people were very, very quick at that, weren't they? Yeah. I think the first thing I remember as a child, I got in trouble actually. I think it was year 2. So what would that have been? How old?
Year 2 would be about 7 or 8 years old.
7, 8 years. Okay. So I learned this sort of sign language that is probably not right, but I did. For those that can't see, I'm tapping my fingers on my hand and then doing a fist, and then putting my thumb behind my shoulder. And I learned that as in year 2, and apparently it means, why don't you F off? I didn't know how bad that meant or how rude that was, but I said it to I did it to a girl who I fancied, who was in the year above, and then she went and told on me. And I think my teacher confronted me, and I burst into tears. I was so embarrassed that I got into trouble because she said, "I'm going to tell your parents." But yeah, so that for me, I think says that swearing at year 2 was quite dangerous. Do you reckon?
I think definitely I think definitely how can I say, the culture around.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the...
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your...
windshield wipers. eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying. Just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
Gift the remarkable with Marc Jacobs fragrances this holiday season. From the iconic Daisy and Perfect to the all-new Daisy Wild, Marc Jacobs perfume gift sets include everything she needs to feel special. From her favorite fragrance, plus the matching travel spray, holiday gifts don't get much more perfect than this. So if you're looking for a gift inspiration these holidays, gift the remarkable with Marc Jacobs.
Saying, what's the phrase that we use? The culture around effing and blinding.
Yeah.
Is that, we use that silly thing where we say effing and blinding to kind of cover up what swearing is, really. And that kind of shielding of language that we use, that many parents try to avoid. We try to drop off of using so many swear words as we grow up. I've done that as well as a parent. I try and replace maybe the F word with fudge or something. We make these changes to try and avoid it. And I think we kind of do shelter our kids a little bit from it when we can, but not. It's not in everyone. Everyone wants to do that kind of thing, but yeah. I think that's it's a bit dangerous if you're a young kid doing it, for sure.
Yeah, I remember replacing things as a school kid. I think we could get away with saying, "Oh, just pee off" instead of piss off, or F off instead of fuck off. We would never dare to say the C word.
Yeah, okay.
In my primary school, I think that was a bit too scary. Was your primary school comfortable with that word?
Definitely wouldn't be. But I mean, there might be people who have said it, but not. They wouldn't have done it in front of someone. I think in front of a teacher or something.
Yeah.
So, but there might be some kids who have heard it and then have said it. My school, my area in Essex wasn't one of the best. Let's put it that way. It was a little rough.
Yeah.
So there had been people swearing at people for sure in the playground, but maybe the C word always feels like that one place too far.
Yeah.
I don't know, whilst I was growing up especially. But then an interesting one, and I talked to Dan about it, funnily enough, bloody is one that when I was a kid was a very strong word still. My parents hated me saying it. But then now I feel like it's transitioned just meaning very. Yeah. Pretty much. So.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, some parents have some sort of problems with certain words, like knackered. My parents would think that I'm saying that I'm tired from having so much sex.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
I think there is a definition in the dictionary somewhere about it relating to being tired from that activity. But generally, we use it just to mean we're tired, don't we?
Exhausted, yeah.
Yeah, I'm knackered, yeah. So they had a go at me whenever I said that kind of thing. But yeah, it wasn't until secondary school that we ever started using the C-bomb between our friends.
The C-bomb. Sure. But still felt like, I don't know, I always felt a bit kind of, it was going too far when I say that one word. Yeah. I don't know what it is about it, but there's kind of like this extra mystery behind that specific word. It's really at the top of the pile of swear words. I think bitch is the one in American English, which is maybe similar. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear, but
oh, is it? Yeah, please do. Yeah, that's feel free to. It's educational, of course. Yeah.
always. But yeah, I think that's on a similar level because the reaction that people specific, even though all of these swear words are just words and we put our own meaning behind them, and we feel like bloody is a good example of when our parents would think it's quite strong, but from our age, maybe we think it's nothing. We put our own meaning behind it, but the similar reaction happens between those two words in those two countries.
Yes. I noticed, because I think this is quite a useful episode to listen to for some who want to feel comfortable using swear words, to sort of feel connected to a British person or somebody using English in a very informal way, but understand where you can and can't do that. Because I remember we had an immersion course and we all met in Brighton train station, and in the first sort of huddle of conversation that we had in the little huddle, one of the non-natives swore very quickly and sort of said, I can't remember if she said bitch or something, but she said something quite vulgar, and it just took me aback, and it made me contemplate how it's about finding that fine line between when you can do it and when you can't do it. Yeah,
it definitely is.
And I think once you've bonded a little bit, it's definitely more open. But you've got to sense check what type of person they are before you try.
Well, I definitely would say that with British culture, we tend to be more reserved. So swearing stands out a bit more. And then I think we do, unconsciously or not, I think a lot of people do judge based on how frequently someone swears. And it's quite an interesting thing that learners should know, because I know a lot of learners that may listen to a lot of songs and learn through music, and then they learn like these swear words, and then they use them in nearly every sentence, and they don't realize the image that gives off. Now, in American culture, it's a bit more laid back, but even some Americans I know still feel that same feeling that I do, and other people do, about using an F word every sentence. There's other words, So
yes, it's also about repetition, isn't it? As soon as you repeat the same vocabulary, it suggests that you don't have any other vocabulary to use. But it's again a cultural thing. Like I was living in Australia, as I said earlier, and I was looking for a place to live, and an estate agent showed me around a flat. And within the first couple of moments, bear in mind this relationship, we've got a very professional setting. He said the C word. Like he described the area and he used the C word. It just amazed me.
That is incredible. Yeah. That's because I can understand a mistake being made between people that you feel are friends. You feel you're friends with them, and you might make the mistake of swearing too much then. That's slightly different because it's informal, but in a professional setting, it's interesting.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. So I think as British people, we've got this very dialed in sense of when we can and can't use it, because many times people are complete potty mouths in certain situations. But it's just when and where. But what about the teachers? Were they ever like rude in your childhood? Would they ever swear at you or insult you? Like
definitely not swear. It'd be a rare circumstance where someone does something wrong, and I think everyone's like that, where there's a limit they hit and then it's impossible to control what comes out. The red mist, I think we say quite often, don't we? So, but I don't feel like I experience swearing specifically, but there would be something maybe. I've heard teachers say like, "You stupid idiot" or something like this, which is actually still damaging. But it depends again. I feel like in those days people didn't take it as strongly as we do now. I think we're way more aware of mental health, and that's a good thing, of course. And it's one of the reasons why I think that we wouldn't tolerate that at all, now.
Yes. So. Yes, that's true. So with your friends, did you feel like going into your teenage years, I just noticed at a point in my life that I did actually enjoy the humour of it, rather than just finding it upsetting or damaging or anything. I think it was when I actually saw my friend wrote down what he really enjoyed in a friend. We did this weird little exercises in our just one off exercise in our form group, and it was like, what makes a great friend? And he wrote down somebody who teases me, and I was like, why would you write that down? As that age, I was just like trying to understand what that's about. And then from then on, I kind of appreciated the banter kind of relationship. But I think that allowed for a kind of change in insults and using it as a way to bond and tease each other. Did you notice a shift between primary school and secondary school with that kind of behaviour?
I mean, probably the frequency increased. I've been a teacher for kids, and so I can see things from a slightly different perspective now to back then. And you definitely see a transition between primary and secondary, or even I'd say the ending years of primary and then secondary. Yeah. And it all depends on their own environment as well. So like we talked about, depending on the parents, and especially if they have older siblings, is the big one to how kids use language. So, but definitely there's a jump in frequency as soon as secondary school comes around, because you go from being the top level in a school, don't you? The top year, the big dogs, and then suddenly you're the bottom. So you become this shy individual again. And because you're resetting yourself, and the only way to do that, I suppose, especially in British society where sarcasm's so big, where you're essentially mocking people to make some kind of joke, is to build relationships with that, and that tends to be what we do, I think, in general. And I think I teach a lot of students who have moved to the UK. And help them settle in and obviously improve their English. But it's not just that as a teacher. You're doing a lot more than just teaching English. You're also helping them understand these cultural differences. And so many students end relationships with people when someone uses sarcasm or uses an insult to them, because they don't understand the cultural side of it. Actually, it's a positive thing in British culture, even though you wouldn't imagine it. It means you've got a close relationship. You jest with each other, yeah.
Completely.
So,
yeah. It's like
it's so interesting.
Inviting them up to dance. Yes, it's like I like you. I'm going to insult you. Yeah, and it's
well, there's that thing in the school playground in primary school where the girl that you like, you would, or the boy, whoever you liked, you would then do something to them to actually. It actually harms them, but you're trying to show that you like them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had that kind of system. System's the wrong word, but that kind of culture in primary schools. But I felt like it was in a lot of primary schools anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely because treat them. I mean, at an early age,
treat them mean, keep them keen. Yeah.
Exactly. You'd kind of understand how to flirt, but it was quite a physical, just. Like a pushing them, and you're like, you pushed me, and then they'll be like, he fancies her, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's the beginning of it, isn't it? So you've experienced it yourself, where students have said that they felt like they were being insulting, and then they stopped the relationship.
Insulted too, 100%. Yeah, right. Not just one or two, like quite a few.
Wow.
And it depends where you're from, I think, is the key thing. So especially if it's a Japanese student who moves to the UK, they don't expect it, I think, is the key thing. There is that banter here as well, but only with long-term relationships. And to become someone's long-term friend, it's a lot more difficult than I would say it is in the UK. In the UK, it could be immediate, to be honest. When people click, they click.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, even I would imagine on the dating apps, like, to stand out, you'd probably have to throw a little bit of teasing around in the first few messages just to get their attention. I haven't used them. I actually haven't used them because I've been with my partner quite a while. But
that's a good thing to say out there.
But I would imagine that would be the case, to sort of show that you've got a bit of a personality. That's why people do it, isn't it? To show that you've got a personality.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, but it's just ingrained in everything that we do as British people, I think. I'll tell you a really interesting thing I learned about comedy from Stephen Fry.
Okay.
So Stephen Fry said that there's a big difference between British humour and American humour, which we know there is, but the way he articulated it's very interesting. Basically, in American humour, if you watch a sitcom, the lead person tends to be the hero, and everyone around them is the fool. But in British sitcom, we are very self-deprecating. communicating, aren't we? So we are always the fall guy.
Yes.
So if you ever watched Not Going Out, or like Lee Mack that's a great example of someone who always is the person who is losing, but you're kind of wanting him to do well in his journey.
Yeah.
So you have that strong feeling of you want him to improve and get better and this kind of thing. But he's always the fall guy, the butt of all the jokes, you know. So yeah.
Yes, that's a really, really good point. I like that a lot. And I think The Office is a good example of how they challenged that, because Americans saw that work so well and they were like, okay, how are we going to make this work in America? And they had to change it slightly. They couldn't make him exactly the same kind of character. They had to almost make him more childish.
It's a bit big humor, I call it. It's
big humor.
It's in your face, you know. You know what the joke is immediately. And I think British humor is a little bit more subtle.
Yes.
You know, and you have to kind of weave through things to find what the joke is sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah. We will be leaving the free version of this episode here for today. But if you did want to continue listening to this conversation, then head over to the BritishEnglishPodcast.com, where you can sign up to the Premium Podcast or the Academy. The Premium Podcast gives you the ad-free version with transcripts, a full glossary and flashcards, whereas the Academy gives you all of that plus a whole lot more, including vocab video lessons, writing assignments, weekly Zoom classes, and you can also get paired with a new speaking partner of a similar level to yours each month to really get your speaking practice in. But if you were just here for the free version of this episode, then I thank you very much. Congratulations for getting to the end of this part, and I hope to see you back here next week for another episode. I've been your host, Charlie, on the British English Podcast. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Before you go, don't forget to download the free vocab worksheet specifically designed for this episode, so that you can go away feeling satisfied that you've got your listening practice in for the day and expanded your vocabulary. You can find the link in the show notes or visit thebritishenglishpodcast.com/worksheet. That's thebritishenglishpodcast.com/worksheet. What's more is you'll unlock the vocabulary worksheet for every single episode in one go. You're welcome. Happy learning.